Hi, this is Jason with Vanna Properties, and I want to talk to you in this video about what to do if you've inherited farmland in Missouri. What are the options that you have if you've inherited a piece of farmland? And how can we approach those and evaluate those options? So in this video, I'm going to talk about 4 different options that you have with farmland you've inherited and a little bit about the pros and cons of each one of those. All right. To get started, the very first thing that comes to mind is that when you own a piece of farmland, you can live on it and you can farm it. All right, people have been living on and farming and providing their food and selling that food to others for thousands and thousands of years. You can do this. This could be a great way to reconnect with nature if you love the outdoors and if you have a good hard work ethic. This is a great way to live on the property and use it and put it to good use. Some farmers actually make good money farming their land once they're efficient at it and they know what they're doing. So the benefit of that is if there's a buildings or a house on that property, hopefully it doesn't look like this house here, but you could fix them up, you could live in it, and if you own the property, you don't have to pay any rent, and therefore it could be profitable for you. Now the downfall is farming is very hard work. Farmers get up with the sun and they work very hard. So maybe you don't want to change careers. That's okay. So let's look at the property and let's look at evaluating its farmability. So if you've inherited a piece of farmland, depending on where it's at in Missouri, or it could possibly be farmland that you've inherited in another state, like Illinois, farmland in Iowa, farmland in Kansas, farmland in Nebraska, farmland in Arkansas, inherited land in Texas, or inherited land in Tennessee or Indiana or Ohio, or really any state. When we look at the property, we need to evaluate its farmability. So the first thing that we're going to look at is evaluate how many acres are tillable. With most farmland in Missouri that's in production, they actually call this the tillable balance, or the balance of the land. So they want to know the balance of acreage between tillable and non-tillable acres. So just to put that in layman's terms, tillable is land that is flat and cleared that they could actually plow and plant crops on. Non-tillable would be farmland that has trees and brush and ravines and woods on it. That is not tillable. So the second thing is you need to look at how much work needs to be done to put the farm into production. Maybe you inherited a working farm, that's great. You shouldn't have any problem making that profitable. But many times the farm has potential, but would need a lot of work done in roadways, in clearing, in drainage, drain tiles and terraces to be built, dry dams, etc. And that would be quite a significant investment. So you need to evaluate that and possibly even have someone look at that closer and give you an estimate. And then the final question, which is really the most important question when looking at a piece of farmland that you've inherited, is what quality of soil does it have? Now there are all different types of farms with all different qualities of soil. The type of soil is going to be directly connected to the value of the property and the value of how you can put this into production, or if it's even worth putting into production. Okay, farmland that would be in the northeastern part of the state of Missouri, oftentimes it has great soil and is very valuable. Also along the Mississippi River bottom on the east side of the state, or the Missouri River bottom on the northwest side of the state, there's some very valuable farmland in those areas. But when you get into the center of the state near the Ozarks and in the woodlands and near Mark Twain National Forest on the southeast side, the farmland quality goes down because the soil quality is poor. And poor soil will most likely not be able to produce corn or soybeans or other row crops, but usually will just be used for pasture land where a person can raise livestock. All right, so what are your options if you've evaluated it and you see some value? Your options are to cash rent it to a local farmer. This is usually the quickest option, and this is where you will just literally do what it said. You will rent it for cash. Just like a person would rent a house, you can rent the soil on your farm for cash. The difference is a house would be paid for rent month to month, whereas farmland is paid in rent yearly. So each growing season gets you a per acre amount for cash rent. Now, cash rent could vary from just a few $100s for a 20 or 40 acre pasture in a pasture fee, just for some grasslands each year for someone to have a few cows on, or it could be in the areas that can be put into production on a per acre basis, and it could be anywhere from 40 acres to 200 acres, or maybe even possibly a little bit more than that a year in cash rent per acre. It's going to depend on the area, the layout of the property, and the soil quality and the yields that it can produce. Okay, cash rent is very simple in that the farmer will pay you directly for cash. You don't have to do anything else but charge that each year and make sure that he pays. However, you are responsible for maintaining the farm structures, the roadways, the tiling. You can see a picture here of tile, drain tile being put in a field, dry dams, terraces, these type of things. Oftentimes a cash renter will not take very good care of because they're just renting. Just the same as a person that rents a house oftentimes isn't as interested in taking care of it as the owner. It's the same thing, and this is something to consider. Over time, you're going to have to invest or set aside some money, significant amount of money, to continue to maintain the farm structures. All right, the second option is you can share crop the farm. And sharecropping is simply what it says. You're sharing the crop with the farmer. So you as the landowner provide the farmland, you find a local farmer, and you come to an agreement with him to share crop. When it's time to buy seed, when it's time to buy fertilizer, you both put up half the money to buy that. And when you harvest, you are going to split the harvest yields, or what it produces, in half in the profits. This is a win-win situation for both. If the farmer has a bad year, you also have a bad year. So it's a little bit more of a fair play for the farmer than a cash rent. However, some people don't want to take that risk and they just like the guaranteed money. Now, the benefit is the farmer, in most cases, will take a little bit better care of the property in mowing and taking care of roadways and things like that, because you're giving him a more fair deal. However, there is more paperwork involved, and you have to be very wise in sharecropping because you need to build a trusting relationship with a local farmer. You're not going to be there when he's harvesting. You're not going to be counting the bushels of corn or soybeans or whatever else is produced on the property, the hay bales. You're not going to be counting them. So you need to have a trusting relationship, and you need to keep good bookwork and keeping track of these expenses. Now, the final thing is if maybe you say, look, I've looked into it. It doesn't really produce a lot in my area to rent this farmland out, and I would rather have the cash and invest it in something else. Then the best option there would be to sell your land for cash. Now, there are farms in some places in the fertile belts of the state and in other states that would be very valuable to hold on to for cash rent or sharecropping, especially in areas that produce row crops. But there are other places where the soil is poor and maybe it would require a lot of work to put the farm into production. It doesn't have a lot of tillable acreage. It has a lot more woodlands and non-tillable acreage. Or maybe it's just some pasture land and you really don't make much off pasture land. So you've come to the decision that you would like to sell the property. Depending on where the property is located, there are many ways you can approach this. You could try to sell it yourself. You could try to find a land broker. You need to find a good one that knows how to sell the property. And another way you could do is if you're looking to cash out on the property, you can go ahead and submit your property to us and our network of land investors, and we will give you a cash offer for the property. It doesn't matter if you owe back taxes, if the property is in rough shape and needs a lot of investment to put it into production or a lot of clearing work. We buy all types of property all over the state and in many other states, and we would be glad to evaluate the property and to offer you a real cash offer where we would close quickly and eliminate any middlemen and no time waiting on the market for possibly months or even years to try and hopefully find a buyer that can get their financing together. We are a direct buyer, and this can be a benefit if you've decided that you inherited the land but you really don't want the headache of trying to manage this from a distance if you don't live nearby and you don't plan to live on the farm. Okay, I hope this video has been informative and it helps you make an informed decision in what to do with your inherited farmland in Missouri or other states. Thank you so much.